The broadcast is now starting. All attendees are in listen-only mode.
All right. Good evening, everyone. Want to thank you for joining us today. This is our first session of cold season spotter weather training for the Inland Northwest. My name is Robin Fox, and I'm at the National Weather Service office in Spokane. And we are going to spend about an hour and a half going through reviewing some of the tips and tricks of weather spotting during the cold season. I have everybody on mute right now. If you have any questions or want to chat anything, please fill out the question box or the chat box. I do have them open, and I will try to do my best to answer them throughout the training. Now, this is a virtual class. This is live, and I'm sure we've been through this with multiple times with other virtual classes. There's a little bar that will show you different things to look at. We're going to have some interactive things to this class where we're going to have some questions, some poll questions that you're going to get a chance to answer. I do have some handouts also attached to the handout section that you can download, which includes our weather spotter checklist and our spotter sign-up sheet. This is primarily for new weather spotters for you to sign up and get the checklist to review. So you are all in listen mode. At the end of the session, I will unmute everybody and give a chance for you to ask any questions that you may have. But throughout the presentation, feel free to type in any questions that you have, and when we get a pause, I will do my best to answer them. All right, so with that, let's get started. With this session, we are going to go through the importance of weather spotting. We're going to talk about how to provide accurate and timely reports on hazardous weather. And this class is focused on cold season weather reports. We're also going to talk about the most important, the most common types of cold season weather threats that we see in the Inland Northwest. Also, we have to cover safety and talk about some ways to stay safe when the next storm rolls into town. And then at the end, you do get a little bonus, the winter outlook for this winter of 22-23. But first, let's review what happened last winter. And I grabbed some pictures and reports of some pretty significant events that happened last winter. So let's roll our clocks back to November 4th and 5th of 2022, where we had a pretty significant windstorm that came roaring through the Inland Northwest. We had some high wind reports all across the region, and on the map shows some of the peak wind gusts during that period. Anywhere from 40 miles an hour up to 60 miles an hour. There were some spots in some higher places that saw close to 80 miles an hour. So these strong winds brought about some significant damage with widespread power outages and tree damage. And I know we were getting some of the Washington DOT to put up signs on the reader boards letting people know about the high winds coming through the area. And here are some of the spotter reports and reports of high winds that we had from the Spokane Airport, from Coeur d'Alene, Wenatchee, Pomeroy, and Sandpoint. So yes, high winds are a concern that we see across our region. Another one over the Christmas holiday, freezing rain back in 2022 that led to some numerous accidents and ice-covered roads, especially around the Spokane and Coeur d'Alene area, made for some treacherous driving conditions. And then right on the heels of the Christmas holiday, between Christmas and New Year's, we got a dump of heavy snow. These pictures were taken primarily across north central Washington. So the Methow Valley, the Okanagan Valley, down to Douglas County on the Waterville Plateau. We had anywhere from 6 inches to 12 inches. And this was across the valleys and the lowlands. The mountains saw quite a bit more. And we did get a report of a roof collapsing due to the snow piling up. And then shortly after that, we saw some warming temperatures, and a lot of that snow that fell across the region was melting, and we were getting rain. And this was a main concern across the Palouse region. From Pullman to Moscow, we were seeing high water, especially on Paradise Creek and the South Fork of the Palouse River. This led to flooding on streets and private property and parks across both of those cities. And then things kind of were a little quiet for January, February, but then we were seeing a little bit more of the thawing and heavy rain happening, especially across northeast Washington, where we saw some small stream flooding happening that led to road closures across Stevens County and Ferry County. We were getting reports of flooding in parks and in private property. And some of these reports span from Hunters to Kettle Falls and Colville. So yes, it was an active season, and I want to thank all of the weather spotters out there that were providing those weather reports, because weather spotters are the eyes and ears of the National Weather Service. We do have a list of over 1,200 weather spotters in our area, so I'm so glad you were able to join in if you're new to the program or just need a refresher course. And for those of you that are new to the program, what is a weather spotter? Well, it's a weather enthusiast who volunteers their time and provides reports of severe and hazardous weather. So to be a weather spotter, it's really easy. You just need training like this class that we're offering this evening. Weather spotting is as an as-needed basis. So whenever the weather turns wild and crazy, that's when we want to hear from the reports from you. There is no weather equipment necessary, just your eyes and your ears. And you simply give the National Weather Service a call to give the reports, or email, or you can even send the reports right online, and I'll show you how to do that. So really important. It helps the National Weather Service do their jobs on getting verification and reports of what's going on during significant weather. So what is the National Weather Service, otherwise known as NWS? Well, we are part of the federal government under the Department of Commerce and NOAA, which is the National Oceanic and Atmospheric Administration. Our main job is to provide watches and warnings on weather and water matters across the region. And these watches and warnings are on severe and hazardous conditions, something that will prompt an issuance that to help the public for the protection of life and property. So we work with local agencies and get the message out on severe and hazardous weather. We also provide observations and forecasts and work behind the scenes with our media partners. We can provide decision support and also help with preparedness and for education. So the office in Spokane is one of 126 offices across the country that spans from coast to coast and north to south. And in our area of responsibility that includes Eastern Washington and North Idaho, we have 2 states, and that includes 13 counties in Washington and 8 counties in North Idaho. And quite a diverse area that we cover, from the Cascade Crest across the Columbia Basin to the mountains of North Idaho, with elevations ranging from about 170 feet near the Columbia Basin of the Columbia River to over 9,000 feet in the North Cascades. So we're going to talk about some of the tools that we use with the National Weather Service to get our weather data. And one important tool is our Doppler weather radar. It's located right outside our weather office that is on the West Plains, north of Fairchild Air Force Base. And in fact, Fairchild Air Force Base also uses our weather data at the radar as well. So we have our big giant soccer ball on stilts outside of our office, and inside that ball, we have a dish that is scanning the skies and releasing electromagnetic energy that that is released going through the atmosphere and helping to detect precipitation. It goes both horizontally and vertically to actually detect what type of precipitation is out there, whether it's rain or snow or hail. And we get this information on our workstations in our office to let us know two important types of information. One is reflectivity. So how intense that precipitation is that we're seeing in the cloud, in the storms, and also velocity. And with velocity, it is actually picking up the direction of the movement of those particles. Is it moving toward the radar or away from the radar? And that's really important information, especially when we're looking at thunderstorms and any types of movement within those storms. Another important tool are weather balloons, which we launch from our office twice a day, every day. And the Spokane office is one of 92 upper air sites across the United States. So yes, we get to play with balloons and inflate them and tie small little boxes to them that are allowed to capture different types of weather data. So in this little box, we can detect temperature and humidity and air pressure. And there is a GPS in it that allows us to track it and get wind speed and wind direction. All of this data is so valuable and important to help us forecast the weather and provide information on different types of storm structure and the threat of storms in our area. So when we launch one of those balloons, it takes about an hour and a half to an hour and 45 minutes to get all of that data as it rises up through the atmosphere and capturing that information. Another important tool that we use are weather satellites. We have different types of satellites that scan the skies and look for clouds. In fact, these weather satellites are launched into space by rockets and orbit the Earth, taking pictures of those clouds from space. So we can get really high detailed information of clouds, even thunderstorm tops. We can get information of where fog is located and wildfires. And we get this data every 5 minutes from different types of channels that we use. These channels can range from the visible picture to infrared that shows heat and heat from the clouds and water vapor. All very important information. And the one that we use most often to share our data are known as geostationary satellites, otherwise known as GOES satellites. And right now we are at GOES 18 that looks over the Pacific Ocean and gives information for our area. Other important tools can be surface observations, getting that data that's happening right at the surface. And we have different ways of getting that information. We have weather sites located at many of our airports across the region. They look like giant candy cane poles that we have on the airport that should give us some of that detailed information. But we also can get this information from sites in the forests, along roadways. Wherever there is an automated weather observing system, we can get that data. Likewise, web cameras are really important too because they allow us to see what's happening. we can see the reports that rain is falling, but these web cameras can give us even more extra information of what is happening at certain locations. Then we have our high resolution weather models that can give us detailed information. These weather models are run hourly and can give us updates on where storms are going to be, the coverage of them, and even more information on lightning and wind speeds and such like that. So with all of this weather data, you're probably wondering, why do we need weather spotters? Well, these tools are great, but they're not foolproof. They're not perfect. We still have limitations with radar and satellite and surface observations. We have holes we need to fill and ground truth because we need more information on where there's lightning, how deep is the snow, how much snow fell, cloud types too. Also, we have so many different types of microclimates across the inland Northwest that it's so important to find out more data in those different valleys and locations. This also helps us get more lead time when we're looking at severe weather and winter weather, and helps us to provide credibility on our warnings. So weather spotters are so important. So now we're up to our first poll question. And I talked a lot about some of the tools we use to monitor weather. So what I'm going to do is launch one of our polls. So stand by, we're going to launch it. What are some important tools to monitor weather? So here we go. We're going to launch it. And there we go. This will give you a chance to make your selection. So I'll give you a few minutes to make your selection. Oh, I'm seeing the reports coming in. Good job. Okay. Wonderful, wonderful. I'm going to close and share the reports. And gosh, I hope that wasn't too difficult. Everybody got it right. All of the above. So yes, radar and satellite and web cameras are all important. So great job on that. So we're going to move ahead and talk about spotter reports. What kind of information do you include in a spotter report? Well, I mentioned that we have a checklist specifically for the Inland Northwest. It is available in our handouts that you can download. It's pretty simple, kind of spells it all out. And being that this is the cold season time, we're going to look down a little bit down in the mid part of that range, from heavy rain and flooding and mixed precipitation and snow. Snow is one of the big ones as we're going through our cold season. So when you give a spotter report, we want the specifics: who you are, what you're seeing, and where you're located. Giving the time of when the event started and ended is even more important. If you can give an estimate of wind speeds or hail size or snow, that's also good too. And if there's any damage to report or even injuries, that is important. If you are a little uncertain of what you're seeing, that's okay too. You can share that information. And reports given while you're traveling or anything delayed, we'll take those too. Also, telling us who you are, that kind of segues into the spotter ID. And all weather spotters can register and get a spotter ID, which makes it even easier to provide spotter reports. So how easy is it? Well, a phone call is the easiest. You can jot down that number, our 1-800 number, 483-4532. That's the easiest way to call us and provide a spotter report. Just as easy are the online reports. And we have this on our webpage. Once you go to weather.gov/Spokane, you scroll down to the bottom and there's going to be a little widget called Submit a Storm Report. You just click on that and you get a GUI that pops up here that allows you to click and send your spotter report pretty easy. Then there's other ways to share reports. Social media is a big one. Facebook, Twitter, I should say X. Yes, we're active on both of those platforms, and you can share your reports or your pictures on these sites, and we can pick up that information as well. Another way to share data is through a platform called MPing. This is a crowdsourcing smartphone app that you can download. It's available on both iOS and Android, and it allows you to provide some information on what type of precipitation is falling at your location. So let's say we're looking at the radar. We can see that there is precipitation over at a certain area, but we're not sure what it is. Is it rain? Is it sleet? Is it snow? Or maybe it's a mixture of all three. So using this app allows you or people in the public to give that report and say, oh yeah, it's rain falling right here. Oh no, it's snow. And we get this information that shows up on our workstations at the office within 5 minutes of sending this data. We've also seen this of people reporting as they're driving, being a passenger along roadways such as I-90, providing information on that too. So really good way of sharing weather data. Also by email, a great way to share your reports and more importantly, pictures. Just send it to nws.spokane@noaa.gov and include pictures of your reports. And we can use that for our verification data or in our newsletters or our next weather spotter training. So let's review of some of examples of spotter reports. So we'll go over that first example on the left. This is Saul Sees All. I'm Spotter Adams number 77, and I'm calling from my home in Ritzville. Freezing rain is falling with about a ½ inch thickness on the patio. Seeing lots of accidents on I-90, and it began about an hour ago. So I would say, Saul, you did a great job with your spotter report. Now let's compare that to the one on the right. Hi there. How are you doing? Who is this? Well, hi, Steve. I am spotter in Douglas County, and it's windy here. The news says it's much worse to the south. How are we going to get another storm? How long is this supposed to last? So what do you think of that spotter report? Well, I think we need more improvement on this one. We need some more data, like who are you and how strong are the winds? And a little bit more information would be helpful for this example. Also want to point out that we may need to contact you for spotter reports. So as registered weather spotters, you are welcome to share your phone number and your email with us. So if we see any severe or hazardous weather in your location, we'll just contact you. Likewise, we will also call and get more information, especially when it comes to snow reports, because that is one of our big ones that happens this time of the year. When it snows, we like to gather that snowfall information. Likewise, getting emails that are accurate are so important too. So we can keep you updated on things, especially on training and our newsletters that come out. Yes, we put out quarterly newsletter known as the Weather Watcher that gives you updates of what has happened over the last season and the last several months. And you can check out some back issues right on our website. Oh, next time for a poll question. What is the best way to provide a spotter weather report? So let me open this one up and I will launch it. So there we go. It's on the screen. The best way to provide a weather spotter report. Do we call the weather service? Do we put it on social media? Do we email the National Weather Service with pictures, or would it be all of the above? So I'll give you a little bit more time to put in your answers. Oh, I see the reports coming in. Oh, wonderful, wonderful. So I'm going to close that and share the reports. Now, overwhelming, everybody said all of the above, which is terrific because yes, those are all valid ways to share your weather information. It would just come down to what your preference is. If you want to call us, that's great. If you want to put it on social media, go ahead. If you want to email us, even better, especially if you have pictures to share. So I would say all of the above would work on that. So great job on that. Okay, so let's review some of the cold season hazards that are on our spotter checklist. But first of all, we're going to review some of the National Weather Service terminology because understanding this is really important because we kind of toss these terms around a lot. And for weather spotters, it's really important to understand what each of these mean. So our first two that are so important are warnings and watches. So a warning means that severe or hazardous weather is occurring right now or really soon. And this poses a threat to life and property. So we need to act now. A watch means that the risk of severe hazardous weather is coming, but it's not here yet. So just have a plan and be ready. So a good way of talking about this, a watch versus warning, is let's say we're talking about Mexican food, tacos. I know it's supper time and this is the time that we might have food on our mind. So when we're talking about a watch, let's say a taco watch, that means we have all our ingredients all on the counter and ready to go, but we're not ready to eat it yet. That comes when we assemble all of it together, then we've reached that warning stage. That taco warning means everything is put together and we're ready to take action, as in taking a big bite. So yes, the difference between watch and warning with that. So the next one on our list is an advisory. Now that means that the weather hazard is occurring, but it's more of a nuisance type of weather. So maybe a little bit of snow or some breezy winds, but nothing that's going to be life-threatening. But you should take caution on that. So when we're talking about advisories, I kind of think of them comparing to tacos as taquitos. So kind of smaller, not quite as impactful with that, but all wrapped up and ready to go. Now, we're talking about outlooks. That's when we're looking out more into the future, out maybe 3, 5, 7 days out, and we see that there is a risk of severe hazardous weather. But we have time to plan and prepare. So we have plenty of time. So when I'm thinking about this with our taco making, this is the grocery store outlook. Means we're going to the store and we're gathering our supplies, so we're getting ready to prepare. So we have time. So hopefully this has helped you understand all of these different parts of the National Weather Service terminology with Mexican food. Okay, now let's talk about some of the threats that we see in the cold season. Heavy snow is one of our main ones. And really, when we get our first snow of the season, we want to hear from you too. And for many of us, we've had that already. But now, when we're getting into our winter season, we'd like to hear from you if you get at least 2 inches of snow. But keep in mind, heavy snow for many of us is now 6 inches or more. We made a switch over the last year, and this map kind of shows some of our winter storm warning criteria. So what we think is going to pose a threat to life and property with these amounts across our region. So for most areas in the lower elevations, that is 6 inches. The exception would be around the Moses Lake area and around the LC Valley, which 4 inches would cause an issue with that. Now, our advisory level, that's more like 2 inches. So anything 2 inches or higher, we'd like to hear from you. Now, when it comes to winter storms, blizzards come to mind. But a blizzard isn't just a winter storm. It's a very specific extreme winter storm. Blizzards have a definition that includes not only falling snow, but more importantly, blowing snow with winds that are over 35 miles an hour. That can cause visibilities to go down close to zero, so less than a quarter mile. And all of this taking place for 3 hours or longer. So a blizzard is a long duration event with some very hazardous conditions that are taking place. So blowing snow is the big thing with blizzards. Now we have a new term to talk about that's more of a short duration event, but an extreme winter type of event. And this is called a snow squall. It's an intense burst of snow with winds that leads to whiteout visibility and deteriorating road conditions. But the difference with this is the short duration event, so less than 3 hours, and can really cause traffic impacts about this. So this is a term that we are going to be using more as we go through now through this next winter season and the future ones. And we actually have warnings for snow squalls that we can issue for our area. Mixed precipitation is a big one, especially as we travel across the Columbia Basin from the Cascades into North Idaho. We can go through different types of precipitation, from rain to freezing rain or drizzle to sleet and ice. And if we get an ice accumulation that is a quarter of an inch, that is flat ice that you would find on a sidewalk or a hood of a car. That's a quarter inch thick. That's all is needed for an ice storm warning. And when we're talking about ice and freezing rain, that happens when the precipitation is falling from the clouds as rain, but our surface temperatures are below freezing. So when it hits, it turns to ice on roadways, on sidewalks, power lines, and trees. So yes, a very, very dangerous types of condition with that. Another type of hazardous weather are strong and damaging winds coming from our high wind events. We like to hear reports of winds that maybe 40 miles an hour or greater. Any types of winds that would produce damage. Now, keep in mind that high winds, severe winds are 58 miles per hour or greater, or 50 knots. but we can get damaged, trees down with high winds across our area. Now, if you don't have a weather sensor or a weather station, you're probably wondering, how can we estimate winds? Well, there's a chart called a Beaufort wind chart that is pretty handy to give estimates on winds. And just by watching branches in a tree or maybe a flagpole, you can get a good estimate of how strong the winds are for your location. So just when you're giving a weather spotter report on a wind estimate, just provide that it is an estimated wind. Heavy rain is another one that we'd like to hear about. Reports of heavy downpours or long periods of steady rain. So when we're looking at those heavy downpours, that would be caused from more showers and thunderstorms or convective rain. When we get about a half an inch of rain in an hour, that is significant and important to report. When we're talking about those long periods of steady rain, that would be maybe about an inch and a half throughout the day. That'd be important to report because that can lead to lowland flooding and ponding and small streams running pretty high. Which leads us to the next thing on the list, which is flooding. Flooding from heavy rain, from snowmelt, field flooding, small streams running high, and rivers as well. And since we're into the cold season, we also have to look for ice jams as well. Ice jams form when we are going through a period of very cold temperatures, that we get ice building up on the streams and rivers. And then when the water backs up, we may get the ice breaking up that causes dams and jams in the river that can lead to even more flooding. Also, we have to keep in mind areas that will see flooding and mudslides and debris flows downslope from wildfires. These are called burn scars, and we have a few of them that have developed from our fires over the summer season this year that we're going to have to keep our eye on. So folks that live close and near to steep slopes that have been burned are most at risk of flash floods and debris flows that would move down those slopes and cause some impacts on private property. So when those conditions exist, these flash floods can happen very quickly. So here's some examples of some mud and debris flows that have happened over the years, where we get a lot of water that will be flowing down those slopes, bringing the rock, the mud, the debris down over the roadways, maybe causing damage on the roads as well, and making it very difficult to travel through. So sometimes we may deal with road closures or some of this mud moving through private property and causing some issues with that. All right, the next poll question is ready. We're going to be talking about what type of weather is that occurs with a snow squall. So we're going to launch it right now and give you some time. Okay, while people are reporting here, I see some questions that have come into the questions. Somebody was asking about the reporting method, the quickest to do during high stress times. Well, I would say that during high stress times, I would suggest giving us a call or sending something online would be some of the best ways to do that. We do have people looking at social media, but I would say we may not pick up those reports right away. Calling, I think, would be probably the fastest way to do it, or send something online, and that report can come across on our workstation. So good job with that. Okay, I see that our reports are in, so great. Let me close that, and we will share the results. What type of weather does not occur during a snow squall? And just keep in mind, snow squalls are short duration events. So that's going to happen in less than 3 hours. If it's longer than 3 hours, that would be considered a blizzard. But all of that, the rest of that criteria are pretty close to the same, with blowing snow, heavy snow, low visibility that is happening. So good job on that. Okay. Okay, so now let's talk about some typical winter storm scenarios that we see across our area. One of the most common ones is we have the time where it gets really cold all across the area. Skies are clear. We get down really chilly in many of those valley locations, and then we get a Pacific storm system approaching with lots of warm air, and it moves through the Columbia River Basin, and this warm air tries to move into the area, and precipitation begins. And then we see the precipitation changing from snow and to sleet to freezing rain and to rain as the system moves through the region. And the differences that we see in those precipitation types all goes down to what the temperatures are doing, not quite at the surface, but above our heads. So really easy to understand. When our temperatures are above freezing, our precipitation is going to fall as rain. That one's pretty easy. When our temperatures are below freezing from the cloud level to the ground, it's going to fall as snow and stay as snow. So yes, very easy. It's the ones in between that can be tough. So when we get a little bit of warm air that is moving into the area, kind of a shallow wedge, that causes that snow to melt, and then it freezes again, we get sleet that falls. So frozen precipitation, little balls of ice that fall down from the clouds. So not hail. Hail comes from thunderstorms. This would be our little balls of ice that we see in the wintertime, known as sleet. But as that warm air wedge gets bigger and wider, then we see that precipitation shifting, falling more as freezing rain. So falling as rain all the way down to the surface. But then when our temperatures on the surface are below freezing, that's when it turns to ice and can be very dangerous and treacherous with freezing rain and ice storms. Another type of scenario known as atmospheric rivers, and these are warm, wet systems, kind of like what we're going through right now, where we get plumes of moisture that come across the Pacific and spread across the region, bringing lots of rainfall, high snow levels with it, and sometimes even wind too. So we get a lot of snow melt. We get a lot of precipitation, especially across the Cascades and parts of southeast Washington, across the Palouse region, tend to be affected a lot from atmospheric rivers. Another type of scenario are our upper level troughs. So another way of saying is cold air well above our heads down to the ground. And within these upper level troughs, we can have little weak systems, little impulses that cause little swirls. They may be difficult to forecast with our weather models, but our models are doing better on this. But they have the potential to drop maybe 6 to 12 inches of snow very quickly over a small area. So this is where weather spotters can play a big role and provide our information. I know it was just a year or two ago that we had a lot of snow that fell in Wenatchee. This was from one of these systems, a little swirl that was happening with our cold air, cold unstable conditions, and can produce some significant heavy snow in a small area. In addition, it can produce snow squalls as well. And here are some examples of some of our winter type condition. We talked about snow, we talked about rain, and this is what's in between. So here is what sleet looks like. Some really small little ice pellets that have fallen down to the ground, and compare it to our hail. So this would be small hail that has fallen from a thunderstorm or a very intense shower with that. So you can see the difference with that. And then how it compares to grapple. Grapple would be a type of frozen soft hail that we get in the late winter, spring storms, where we get the showers and thunderstorms developing in a colder atmosphere, and it produces grapple, which will bounce, and it's soft like little pieces of styrofoam that fall. So a little bit different of types of precipitation under different types of weather regimes. Okay, next poll question. I want you to look at that picture and study it. And we're going to launch our next poll on this, on identify this type of precipitation. Okay, here we go. What is it? Is it freezing rain? Is it sleet? Or is it grapple or hail? Okay, the votes are coming in. Okay, I'm going to look at some of these questions that are coming in. All right, good question having to do with our precipitation events in our region. Are they driven by warm air advection rather than cold air advection? Well, we actually have a combination of both types of systems. We do get warm fronts that trigger warm air advection, that we get our precipitation that changes from snow to sleet to rain, and we get cold air advections as well that can usher in that colder air and our upper level trough. So we get both. Now, the difference is our terrain and our mountains that can really play a little havoc with the seeing those different types of patterns in our area. But yes, we do get both of those in our region. So good question. Okay, I see our reports are in. So I'm going to close and share the results. And okay, I see we've had a few for grapple and a few for sleet, but majority say freezing rain. And I have to agree, freezing rain, where we can see on the picture, let me hide that. You can see the ice that's coated the barbed wire fence and on the grass as well. But I want to also share with you the best way to measure the ice of freezing rain isn't really on these on the barbed wire and on the grass. You want to look at a flat surface and measure the thickness from that. So good job. Okay, so we're going to talk a little bit about thunderstorms as well, because yes, even in the cold season, we can get thunderstorms. They may not be very strong, but can cause some damage, especially on our shoulder season. So November and as we get into February and March. So let's talk about some of the ingredients. What do we need to make a thunderstorm? Well, it's really easy. The three main ones include moisture, especially in the lower levels of the atmosphere. We need that moisture, that water vapor to make the clouds. The second ingredient is instability, and that provides the ability for the air to accelerate when it's pushed up. So instability is the energy needed, and we look at different types of indices to let us know how unstable the atmosphere is going to be. Ideally, what we want to have is warm air near the surface, cold air above our heads, and that's going to cause the air to mix. So in the wintertime, it needs to be really cold above our heads than near the surface to get these showers and thunderstorms to develop. And the third ingredient is the lifting mechanism. So that push that starts it all. That could be a weather system like a cold front or low pressure that's moving into the region, or simply the mountains as the air is rising up and over the mountains. So the three main ingredients. And a thunderstorm has different stages. 3 stages of your general garden variety thunderstorm. The first one is the cumulus stage, as you see the updraft that's building and growing. The second stage is the mature stage, where we get both updraft and downdraft going on. So this is when the thunderstorm reaches its peak and where we can get the heavy rain, we get the hail falling, and the gusty winds. Now, with a general thunderstorm, once that downdraft picks up, it actually starts decaying after that because it wipes out the updraft. That's the dissipating stage. We can get some really strong winds from that dissipating stage, but then it tends to dissipate after that. And your general garden variety thunderstorm can last maybe up to 20-30 minutes. Now, what is a severe thunderstorm? Well, we look at wind, we look at hail. Winds need to be greater than 50 knots or 58 miles an hour, or causing damage. Or we're going to have hail as big as a quarter, which is greater than an inch in diameter. So those are the two biggies right there. Another thing is tornadoes. Yes, we do get tornadoes in our region. They tend to be fairly small, but when we're looking at a tornado, then it's more of a tornadic storm, which is the next level that we see for severe thunderstorms. Now, of all thunderstorms, less than 10% of them are considered severe. But one threat that we always see with thunderstorms is lightning. Extremely dangerous. And we are also learning from more studies that the amount of lightning that we see may lead to the strength of the storm and could be a sign of severe types of conditions. But getting those spotter reports are really important as well. Now, ways to report hail size, really important. We like to use coins. We like to use balls in comparison. Not really marbles, because marbles can be in different sizes, but coins and balls are the best to report hail size. Now, what about funnel clouds, dust devils? Yes, we get those around our region, and they can be really confusing. But it's important to know the difference and how they are formed, because they are formed differently. Now, funnel clouds will come from a developing thunderstorm or a mature thunderstorm. It stays aloft, so we see the funnel coming down from the cloud, and it doesn't reach the ground. Dust devils, they start at ground level and then build upwards. They develop by uneven heating that's happening near the surface, especially in a plowed field. See a lot of them across the Columbia Basin, where we get that heating that causes a little spin up that happens in a field, and then it works its way up. Now, sometimes we can get a dust devil that will form with a developing shower or thunderstorm, and they kind of move together and will develop into a very weak tornado known as a landspout. And we've had several reports of those in the last couple years. Tornadoes develop from a strong rotating thunderstorm that will start from the base of the cloud and go all the way down to the ground. So when you see these types of funnels or whirlwinds, try to grab a picture if you can. If you want to give us a report, describe what you see and we will investigate and try to determine what it is. Also want to point out our local severe weather climatology. Our peak times of the year for severe weather, no surprise, happens in the spring and the summertime. But I want to point out that we've had severe reports in November and as early as January. So I don't want to rule that out, especially for when we're talking about damaging winds. That is something that we can see a lot in our winter cold times of the year. And at the time of the day, which tends to be the most active, is not a surprise either. Mid-afternoon and even into the evening hours, we see less activity in the morning. So here's a review of different types of clouds that we may see across the skies in our region. Important to understand some of these cloud types. So this one in the middle with the big puffy cotton ball clouds, those are cumulus clouds. And if you keep an eye on them and there's enough instability, they can lead to this, a towering cumulus. So the start of thunderstorms. When you see that big anvil on top, that is a sign that we're getting into the thunderstorm stage, and we can expect some lightning coming from it, some rain and gusty winds. Now, this lower picture right here is a picture of a wall cloud. So this is a mature thunderstorm that is rotating. And as a spotter, we could actually see that movement going and watching this rotate and start to lower. So this is the signs of what to look for with a wall cloud. Now, the pictures on the left, these are less types of serious clouds that we could see, but they can be a little confusing, especially for this upper left picture, that we see these little fragments coming down from the cloud. And that looks like it could be a funnel. It could be the sign of something that is developing. But you notice how ragged they are and lots of fragments. And that lets us know that's known more of a scud cloud. So cloud debris happening. And if you keep your eye on it and we don't see any rotation happening, we can kind of just chalk it up to being just some ragged types of cloud debris. And these types of clouds that we see, stable clouds that hug the mountains, are known as stratus clouds and more of our common types of winter clouds. So here, the next poll question. Let's see if you can identify this cloud right here. So I'm going to let you look at that. And here we go. We're going to launch it. 3, 2, 1. What type of cloud was in that picture? Was it a stratus cloud, a cumulus cloud, a cirrus cloud, or an altostratus cloud? Okay, I'm going to look at some more questions that have come in. Oh, somebody was interested about our vertical temperature graphic. Can we make it available? Yes. Well, what I'm going to do at the end of our spotter sessions is I'm going to make a PDF of all of these slides and provide that and make it available so you could copy that vertical temperature profile right out of that. So just stay tuned on that. Okay, so what we're going to do now is close the poll and I'm going to share it. Now, from that picture, we had a lot of votes on stratus. And I would kind of lean toward that one. But yes, there were some people that said alto stratus. So that's that would probably be the second one that I would pick, because alto stratus means it's a mid-level cloud, and we're not quite sure how high those mountains are. So it could be an alto stratus, but I would lean more toward a low-level cloud being a stratus. And I don't really see any puffiness in the clouds and cotton ball sign, so I wouldn't call it a cumulus cloud with that. So I want to say good job for those. Okay. All right. So now let's talk about ways to be safe. This is so important as we're going into our cold weather. Remember our safety tips, our safety rules. And the first one we're going to talk about is flood safety, because when it rains, we can get a lot of it. And it can impact our roadways. It can impact our property. So we want to be alert for rising water, especially in low-lying areas and in canyons and valleys. Also, if you are in an area with steep slopes, keep an eye on things that would be coming down those steep slopes, boulders or rocks or mud or debris. Keep in mind that moving water is very powerful. It only takes 6 inches of moving water to knock a person off their feet, and up to 2 feet of moving water that can carry away most automobiles and trucks. So we don't want to go into any slurry of moving water like this. And also, you don't know what's in that water. Debris, mud, logs. You don't want to get struck by anything like that. And also, if there is reports of flooding, be really careful at night. We don't want people to get caught, get in trouble as they're trying to travel down roads that are flooded. Be alert to signs on roads. And also, when flooded, turn around, don't drown. That's our big saying that we talk about for flood safety. Winter storm safety. This is something we all should be in tune of here across the inland Northwest. We should make sure our vehicle is winterized. Make sure we have some good tires. They're inflated, ready to travel through the snow and the ice. Make sure our car is packed. We've got blankets and flashlights, ice scrapers, maybe a small shovel. I always make sure I have some extra snacks and some water as well. Dress for the weather. Remember to dress in layers and have hats and gloves ready and extra layers of coats. Maybe even throw them in your car too. And if you get caught in a winter storm, try to stay indoors, find shelter, stay dry and stay warm, and travel safe. Also, if you plan to travel across the passes and during the winter weather, keep an idea of what the pass conditions are like. What are the road conditions like? There are sites through the DOT that you can get that information. And even lightning safety is important to remember, especially as we're on those shoulder seasons. We could get some lightning, some thunderstorms. Keep in mind, lightning can strike up to 10 miles away from a thunderstorm, and we can get deaths from people that get struck by lightning. So when thunder roars, go indoors and stay away from windows and doors, and stay safe. So as weather spotters, yes, you are weather enthusiasts. You want to see what is going on outside. You want to go check it out. I understand, but you also have to remember to be safe, and your personal safety is so important. Protect yourself, protect your family. Don't put yourself in harm's way. Be really careful, or trees are down, power lines are down. If there's flooding, remember, find an alternate way to get to where you need to go. So be aware, communicate with people, and know safe ways of how to get to the safe zones. All right, next poll question. You're planning a trip over the passes for the holidays. What should you pack? Okay, Thanksgiving's coming up, Christmas holidays. What do you put in your car? Do you pack some chains, or if you don't have four-wheel drive or all-wheel drive, do you pack your ice scraper? What about snacks and water, or maybe all of the above? Okay, I'm going to go back to our questions, and we had somebody that asked about what about dense fog? What and the causes for it? Well, fog is just a cloud that's on the ground, stratus that is on the ground. And what causes it can be a couple reasons. We could have a lot of cooling that takes place that causes the temperature to lower to the wet bulb, and that causes condensation near the ground. We could also have a lot of precipitation like we've had in the past 24 hours, and then a break from it. And we have all that water vapor still in the atmosphere that causes it to condense and causes that fog to form near the ground. Typically when we have dense fog, we don't have a lot of wind. So winds would be fairly light or calm. And a lot of times we get our dense fog, that'll be during the overnight and morning hours. Another thing with fog we have to be careful about is when temperatures are at or below freezing, because that can lead to freezing fog that can make our roadways very icy. So good question on that. So, okay, I'm going to close our poll and share it, and let's see the results. Yes, I want to make sure I have my snacks and water packed when I go over the pass. That is a given any time of the year. But for our winter holidays, I'm going to make sure that I have got my tires all ready to go. I can travel on snow and ice and have my ice scraper too. So I would lean toward all of the above. And also call and check what the road conditions are like before I hit the road. So good job. Okay, I want to also stress ways on staying informed, knowing what's going on with the weather. And the first one I want to point out is the National Weather Service webpage, weather.gov/Spokane. You can get a lot of information on there from our weather stories that are going to highlight what some of the weather risks are for the upcoming week. Our clickable map that you can click on and get a forecast instantly for your location. And then we have all these little widgets at the bottom that you can select and look for lots of additional data. We also have tabs to pull down that you can find current hazards and weather conditions, radar data, different types of forecasts, river data, climate data, and other local programs, including the Spotter program. Now, another thing I wanted to point out is ways to get more information on probabilistic forecasts. So this is something we're going to be talking more about as we go through our winter season, is probabilities of seeing so much snow, or probabilities of how strong the winds are going to be, and how confident we are on this. Now, we have a page on our webpage that provides winter hazards, or weather.gov/Spokane winter, that can give us ranges of snow data. Like we have a 10% chance of seeing this much snow, and a 90% chance of this much snow. So you can see the range of probabilities of snow amounts for your area. So maybe that will give you a little more information on the forecast or the type of weather you can expect. Also, another way to stay informed is through NOAA Weather Radio. We have several transmitters across the inland Northwest out of Spokane and Bonners Ferry, Lewiston, Grangeville, and Orofino. There's one in Dayton, Wenatchee, and Okanagan that cover our area. And we have these transmitters that can give this information through specially built radios, NOAA weather radios. It gives a continuous broadcast of weather conditions, weather forecasts, and any weather alerts. So really a great way to get weather data when you need it right away. Also, weather data right on your phone, your cell phone. If you go to mobile.weather.gov, this is a great way to get the weather, the National Weather Service forecast on your phone and add it to your home screen. It makes a little app, a widget on your phone that you can revisit and go back to again. And it allows you to pick different sites to look at. So maybe Spokane, Coeur d'Alene, Wenatchee, Pomeroy. You just put those all in your list and you can get the forecast right away from the National Weather Service. Also, on your phone, you have the ability to pick up wireless emergency alerts. Now, this is on your phone already. I recommend keeping it turned on in case of these extreme events. They will only be turned on or activated when there are tornado warnings, extreme flash flood warnings, extreme wind warnings, dust storm warnings, and snow squall warnings. So these are short duration events when we need to get to contact people in a small area that is seeing this extreme weather. These will also be activated during local emergencies if evacuations are needed, and also any type of national emergencies as well. And they will show up on your phone with emergency alerts like this. So when one of those shows up on your phone, take heed and go to your safe place. Also want to advertise staying informed with our Inland Northwest weather blog. We have one out right now. It's linked to our National Weather Service page. It's a great way to understand what's going on in the weather right now, some weather events or outlooks. And right now we have a blog post that's talking about our winter outlook and El Nino. So feel free to check it out and look at some of our past issues with that. Also, really important, if we're going to be reporting severe and hazardous weather, it also makes sense that we're prepared for it. So good time is now to start planning your emergency kits, getting your backpack, go bag ready to go, and making sure that you have the supplies you need, from a flashlight to bottled water to snacks to batteries, first aid kits, everything that you would need in case you need to go and evacuate in a short amount of time. So there are other ways that you can get involved, and being a weather spotter is, I call, the entry level. It's the beginner level. And right now you have gone through weather spotter training, so great job. But I also want to talk about some other ways that you can get involved that include reporting precipitation and also sharing weather data. So a great way to report precipitation is through this network called the Community Collaborative Rain, Hail, and Snow Network. The nickname is called Cocoa Raz. It's not a cereal. It's just a way to report precipitation. And to do this, you would need a rain gauge, and a specific one. In fact, it's a 4-inch rain gauge. You would go to the website, cocoraz.org, and register. get your rain gauge, and then start reporting. And once a day, you can transmit your precipitation, your rain, your snow, and your hail through this website. It also has a cell phone app that you can do it as well. And really easy to do that rain gauge. Go to the website and then find a good spot to put that rain gauge and then start reporting. Now, we're going to be offering a class to talk about how to give snow reports because there's a little more steps involved with that, and that'll be coming next week. So if you want to learn more about measuring snow, join us back next week to learn more. Now, another type of program is the Citizen Weather Observing Program, or the CWOP program. And this is where you can have a weather station and you can hook it up to the internet and share your information from your weather station. So this is one platform that we talk about. I know there's others, like Weather Underground is another way too. It's a way to take your weather station and share it with the outside world. And with us in the National Weather Service, if it's on the internet, we can look at that data and we can use it for reports. So this is another way of sharing weather data. So if you're interested, you go to that web page and it shows up here, Citizen Weather Observing Program, and you can register and share your information right online. So all of these reports all these programs are different, but are useful with the National Weather Service. It's a great way to sharing weather data, and each one has a different type of responsibility. Like I said, the entry level I say would be the spotter program because no weather instruments are needed. It's all event driven. You can call us, send your reports online. It's really easy. With CocoRa's, this is just precipitation. And yes, you need equipment. You need a rain gauge, a ruler too to measure. And it's a daily commitment to do that. But some folks, they really enjoy being CocoRa's observers. And then for a CWOP, this is a little more of an investment. You have a weather station that you hook up to the internet and provide that information online. Speaking of resources online, our webpage has many resources that you can check out under the Weather Spotter program. You can look at past recorded trainings, grab the notes if you missed it. Also, we have other national spotter classes available. One good one is the Comet Met Ed site. So it does have some different Skywarn classes available that you can get more detail on, and a whole slew of other types of weather classes that are all free that you can go on and learn more about. So great resources available. Also, we have our newsletters online that you can view. You can find more about NOAA Weather Radio. You can look at the storm report. So that's another thing to talk about. When you provide a weather spotter report during an event, we will collect that information and issue a local storm report, an LSR. That's going to include all the reports that we received from weather spotters and observers. So we will include your weather spotter ID, your location with that as well. Okay, we're going to go to our next poll question having to do with a good way to get information and stay informed about hazardous weather. So would this be on the internet at weather.gov? Would it be cell phone with weather apps? Would it be through local TV stations, or would it be all of the above? Oh, Okay, I see we had another question that came through that talked about the Skywarn logo, how we advertise at the beginning of our presentation. Yes, weather spotters, they're part of Skywarn. So registering as a weather spotter, you are also part of the Skywarn program, which is a national program of weather spotters, and it's recognized if you go from different states. So let's say you're traveling into another state, another area. You can provide weather reports to that local weather service office, and saying that you are a trained weather spotter. They really trust your reports and will use your reports as well. So yes, being a weather spotter, it means that you're part of the Skywarn program. So thanks for asking on that. Okay, I see the reports have come in. So I'm going to close and share the reports. So we have a few people that have said using cell phones with weather apps. Yes, that is a good way of staying informed on hazardous weather. On the internet at weather.gov, yes, definitely is a great way. But I would also say local TV stations too, because we're relaying that information with our media partners. So I say all of the above. They are all great ways of staying informed on hazardous weather. It just depends on what your means of following that weather data, and if you want it up to the minute and or just a broad description of what the weather is, you have different ways of getting that information. So great job on that. Okay, I know you've been waiting, and here we're going to go through the winter outlook for 23-24. So here's your bonus that we're going to be talking about. So first, let's look back what it's been like over the last season, the last 90 days as we looked at. And I want to say things have been fairly warm as we looked at from the summertime through the fall. Temperatures have been above normal, and precipitation has been very close to normal as we've been looking at. We've seen some pockets of above normal precipitation and some pockets of below, but overall it's been averaging, so pretty close to normal, but mild. Now, we also need to address the drought. And yes, we do have different levels of drought that's been shown on the drought monitor, which is on the left. It's been drier on the west side where we see some of those reds with extreme drought going on. For the inland Northwest, we've seen some severe drought across parts of southeast Washington and up into North Idaho. And that had a lot to do with the long-term dryness that we saw from last winter. But we also have pockets that we have no drought at all in parts of the central parts of the Columbia Basin. So as we're looking into the future, the outlook for the drought shows that we're going to see it persisting and probably developing a little bit more in the Columbia Basin. So drier types of conditions are expected as we go through the next several months. And that has a lot to do with our current ENSO status. So the El Nino Southern Oscillation status talks about the threats of El Nino versus La Nina. And we're in a different pattern for this year. We had the last 3 winters, La Nina winters. Now we are going into an El Nino winter. And we have an El Nino advisory already out. It has been present for many months. It's anticipated to continue through the winter and the spring of the Northern Hemisphere, with an 80% chance even continuing into May. So it is here. It looks like it's going to be with us for some time. And with this particular El Nino, it is advertised to be a strong event. The long-term forecasts are showing that warming that's going to be going on in the near the equator. The sea surface temperatures are expected to be much warmer than normal and continuing for quite some time. So we are looking at a 3 in 10 chance of being a historically strong event. And this is going to be rivaling the event of 2015 and 16, which was a very strong El Nino event, and 97, 98. Now, keep in mind, strong El Nino events increase the likelihood that we're going to see these types of climate anomalies, but does not really mean we're going to see strong impacts locally. So, just want to stress that every winter is different. But right now we're setting things up that we're seeing an ocean that is very warm, and that is going to impact the jet stream and how it's going to drive the storms into our area. So here's what I'm talking about. This is the typical type of weather pattern that happens when we're in an El Nino. We have a strong jet stream that develops from all that warm ocean water, and it takes a more southern track, covering across the southern U.S. So from California to Texas to Florida. We don't see much in the way of the storm track happening in our area. The polar jet stream is going to be weaker. It may show up and give us some rounds of precipitation, but overall, we're going to be seeing milder and above normal temperatures with this. So how does this play with snow? Well, when things are milder, we still will get that precipitation, but maybe less in the way of snow. And we have done a study on snow climatology across our region, and these percentages show the percent chance of compared to normal for snow amounts. So there are a few areas that might be close to normal in the Cascades and up in north central Washington, but for the most part, we're looking at anywhere from 65 to 85% of normal for snow amounts. So when we click on those points, we can see the comparisons of these different ENSO states. So La Nina is what we've seen the past 3 winters. And typically we get above normal snowfall with that, with colder and more active type of winter pattern. El Nino brings us below normal snowfall, and on average, maybe about 35 inches of snow for the whole season, with average being just shy of 50 inches at 48.1. But it's also good to look back to see what has happened during those other strong El Nino events. So 2015 and 16, looking back at 1997 and 98, and there are several more that were strong events. And we look back in those years and put together composites of what actually happened. So here's a composite on the left that shows the temperatures and what happened during strong El Nino events. And it's quite clear the northern tier of the U.S. stays warmer than normal, including our little part of the world. So milder temperatures is something that we do see. And we have a little bit more confidence seeing that. Now for precipitation, it's more variable for our area. Now for Washington, especially in the lee of the Cascades and the Columbia Basin, it's been trending a little bit wetter at some of these strong El Nino events. But as we go across the Palouse into North Idaho, it trends a little drier. So we're going to have to see what happens as we go through this winter and see how things pan out. It could be a little variable, all depending on the tracks of these weather systems and the frequency. So here's the outlook that was just released on October 31st for the outlook for November, and it does stress above normal temperatures across much of the western U.S., including our area. But really interesting to see November, how it's starting out with wetter than normal conditions. So we're seeing it the second day of November, and we're getting a lot of precipitation, and we're going to see more rounds of it this week, and looking like that may be continuing as we go through the month. But then as we stretch it out through the winter season from November through January, we're seeing how things may be changing a bit. Not so much more for temperatures, because we're going to keep that warmer than normal trend through the winter season, but we're seeing kind of a signal of below normal chances of precipitation, especially for North Idaho and extreme eastern, southeastern Washington, which is a typical signal for an El Nino. But I want to keep in mind that there are other factors going on, other oscillations that could be impacting our storm track and the track of storm systems coming through our area. So that's why it's so important to stay informed and keep an eye on our webpage for some of the latest updates. So, key points to keep in mind. We have a drought still, and it will likely expand, especially if we get into a stretch of some very quiet weather with not much in the way of precipitation. And also that mountain snow is really key, because without building a good snowpack, that's really going to impact and keep our drought conditions lingering longer. So yes, it's trending wet for November, but then the signal looks like it could be a little quieter and milder as we go through the winter season. But overall, I want everybody to keep in mind winter is coming, and we are going to get storms. We're going to get some snow. We may get some ice. We'll get rain and probably some wind. So just stay abreast and keep an eye on the weather, because spotter reports are so important with our job and trying to get the message out on severe and hazardous weather. And you do play an important role with that. So I want to thank you for staying with me today and learning and refreshing yourself on providing spotter reports. And if you have any questions, what I'm going to do is unmute you.